What happened to El Chapo's Deadliest Hitmen? Do you know about a deadly cult that you can join, but there's no way out, at least not alive? The famous drug lord of Mexico, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, smuggled tons of cocaine around the globe, broke out of 2 maximum security facilities, and is now one of the most sought-after fugitives in the world. Watch this video to find out the fate his hitmen were met with. First up, let's talk about the snitches that got stitches. Even though thousands of people were slain by his vicious Sinaloa cartel, El Chapo, also known as Shorty, became a folk hero for some in Mexico thanks to his daring exploits. Him and his men were a true picture of Mexico's ongoing struggle to bring down its biggest rival in the battle on drug trafficking. After about 30 years of drug trafficking, Guzman was apprehended in his native state of Sinaloa in January 2016. His men have all had their fair share of horrible things happening to them as well. In a gunfight, a top El Chapo assassin was shot dead and thrown from a speeding car. The body of Pee-wee, or Edgar Alexis Meza Soto, was discovered in 2020. He was the leader of his squad, but that wasn't enough to save him. Soto was hurt in a fight in Puerto de Güemes and later killed by other hitmen who dumped his body in the Loma Dorada neighborhood. The allegations followed news that El Chapo's sons had started a bloody conflict to retake his drug-producing region. For the Sinaloa cartel, they allegedly smuggled drugs and immigrants into the U.S. An army crackdown earlier that month resulted in the arrest of another suspected drug lord from the Sinaloa cartel. Their men were doing everything to clean their tracks and get any snitches out of the way before officials caught them. Guzman is remembered more fondly in many Mexican communities for the hitmen squads he led, who were responsible for tens of thousands of killings, abductions, and beheadings. As the government waged a war on drug trafficking in 2006, which broke up criminal organizations and increased murder rates, violence started to rise. Since then, Mexico has recorded over 250,000 homicides, including a record-breaking year for killings. Hundreds of tons of heroin, cocaine, marijuana, and crystal meth were smuggled across the Mexican border into the United States by Guzman's Sinaloa cartel. El Chapo and his men were named the first public enemy #1 since Al Capone in the city by the Chicago Crime Commission in February 2013. To save themselves, El Chapo's men were going to every extent to save themselves, which included killing their fellows. In 2020, a convicted Sinaloa cartel enforcer and 2 family members were killed in Culiacan 10 days after evading supervised release in San Diego. The 3 bodies were discovered inside a BMW X5 sports utility vehicle owned by Jose Rodrigo Arachiga Gamboa. After killing them on a rural road, the car had been abandoned. The hitman's sister, Ada Jimena, and his brother-in-law, Juan Guillermo Garcia, were the other 2 victims. They all had obvious bullet holes and traces of torture. What's worse, the secret police images of his dead body were somehow leaked and tweeted by a Mexican blog that covers Mexico's drug trade. And what happened to others who made one wrong move? Once you join these dangerous gangs, there's really no way out. You either get in the hands of authorities or killed at the hands of your own fellow hitmen. Take Gamboa, for example. During the drug warfare a decade ago, Arachiga Gamboa rose to prominence as the Sinaloa cartel's go-to hitman. According to a private U.S. intelligence analyst, his group was implicated in the killings of rivals from the Arellano Felix, Beltran Leyva, and Carrillo Fuentes drug trafficking organizations. When all was said and done, analysts agree that the Sinaloa cartel, led by Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, effectively controlled the entire drug trade in Mexico. His problem? He was clueless when it came to maintaining a low profile and flaunted his fortune on social media. That was never going to go down well. He was detained in Amsterdam and extradited to the US on allegations of importing cocaine and marijuana. Gamboa knew that he'd crossed some individuals, but we believe that someone assured him that it was okay for him to return home. So basically, he was set up. Even from his time working as an enforcer for the Sinaloa cartel, he had a lot of enemies. But given that he was kidnapped and put to death in Culiacan, for all we know, this could have been an internal matter. Ishmael El Mayo Zambada, the current drug boss of the Sinaloa cartel, or someone higher up who may disagree with him, like El Chapo Guzman's kids, were either responsible for the double cross. Next, let's talk about the men of El Chapo's Sinaloa cartel. The Sinaloa cartel has been divided into 4 major factions since the United States imprisoned its most capable and notorious capo, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman Lorea. These factions are led by Ishmael El Mayo Zambada, Rafael Caro Quintero, El Chapo's brother, Aureliano El Guano Guzman Loera, and El Chapo's 4 sons, collectively known as Los Chapitos. The Sinaloa cartel, a very successful and established criminal organization, presents itself as a collection of tame criminals whose harsh authority is predictable and to some extent moderate. In fact, the Sinaloa cartel has made strategic use of violence to establish its dominance in a way that allows local business owners, politicians, and residents to adapt in predictable ways, as polite extortionists who bring order, who are civilized criminals, and who don't just drag in violence for the sake of violence. Very polite and civilized indeed. The Sinaloa cartel maintains a low-key, covert image, but have worked to establish political clout with stakeholders, including companies, religious leaders, social influencers, politicians, the armed forces, government institutions, and local residents. That's not all. They can also bring quite the good Samaritans, doing various services for local residents and businesses, like fending off tax inspectors and collectors. According to a high-ranking local businessman in Acapulco, the Sinaloa cartel also helped police in the city by helping catch suspected kidnappers and solving a few cases of businessmen's families being abducted. Internal media was blown away by how several Mexican criminal organizations, including El Chapo's men, were dispersing social care packages to communities, which had cash, food, and hand sanitizers during the spring of 2020 when COVID-19 was sweeping the globe and Mexico was hit quite badly. But that's what, they're very smart like that. But some of these guys just had themselves to blame. Or maybe their love interests. An infamous Mexican drug dealer who had been wanted in nearly 200 nations was eventually apprehended in Colombia after his model girlfriend shared photos of the two sharing a passionate kiss at a tourist spot on Facebook. Great job, girl. This was none other than Brian Donaciano Alguin Verdugo, popularly known as El Pit. He's directly connected to El Chapo's drug business, and soon after he was detained by the Colombian police at his luxury home in Cali City. The Colombian authorities had been informed by the U.S. Drug and Enforcement Agency that El Pit had entered the country in February. The 39-year-old had been traveling between towns ever since with a squad of armed men. Police officials were desperately trying to get a hold of this guy, so his girl's Facebook update came in handy. El Pit apparently left one of the meetings and went back to his lover in the city of Cali, where the Mexican model persuaded the drug lord to go to Los Cristales, a popular tourist attraction on a mountain with a large statue of Jesus Christ on its summit. His girlfriend also persuaded him to take a selfie kissing in front of the enormous statue, which she then uploaded on Facebook. Something tells us there's something fishy here. Is he sure his girl didn't tip off on purpose? And lastly, there are those who got caught. High-ranking Sinaloa cartel member Antonio Jaguar Marufo, a well-known hitman for Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, was extradited from Mexico to the U.S. to face federal charges. By the way, these are the same April 2012 indictments which El Chapo was named in for murder, kidnapping, money laundering, and drug distribution. The inquiry into Marufo finally resulted in the seizure of hundreds of kilograms of cocaine. Hundreds of guns and millions of dollars in drug money were seized. According to a former hitman, Edgar Galvin, who snitched to the police, El Chapo committed his murders at Marufo's slaughterhouse. He was a witness in Guzman's prosecution, and in his horrifying confessions, he revealed that Marufo's house had a tiled floor that was entirely white. The house was entirely soundproof, and nobody who ever came in came out alive. That just made the hair at the back of our necks stand. But that's all we have for today, folks. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and hit the bell icon for more videos like these. Until next time, ciao!